So I rolled a 1, and that brought us to Age of Empires 1 Definitive Edition. I initially typed up my list in alphabetical order, and that's how we ended up here. So the game came out in 2019 as a refresh of the original Age of Empires game from 1997. There's also another way for you to get the game, which is like as an expansion pack of Age of Empires 2. I'm not sure which is best, so here we are. We're going to go over and look through this particular game. I had never played it before, up till this time, and in fact, my experience with Age of Empires in general is actually just Age of Empires 2 and 3. I bought Age of Empires 2 when I was in about 4th grade. Well, I didn't buy it, I begged my mother. And she got it for me and I loved it. Had to stick that disc in and out of there. Got the Conquerors expansion pack and had to put that one in there too to be able to play the Aztecs and all the other groups. And I had never actually played Age of Empires 1 at all. And this was quite a changeover. So I decided instead of just playing a bunch of random battles against the AI, I would try out the campaign setting, because 90s RTS games and their campaigns tended to either be really good or really strange, and generally had a big mix of very frustrating stuff in it. So I figured I'd get that full experience here, and it did not disappoint. I ended up playing over the 8 hours requisite time that I sort of set out in the rules of this video series, and played 20 hours in total. Eventually, I decided to go ahead and stop and make the video because I ran into a campaign mission which required what I assume would be hours of dedication. And that I would have to learn to micro the units a lot better, and also because the level in the mission set itself would take a very, very long time to complete. I also noticed that in YouTube Let's Plays that had been done for the series when the game came out, they often stopped around this time, so it doesn't seem like I'm the only one that got frustrated. Also, there's the other end of it, where I didn't want to continue to dedicate that much time to it. I kind of knew what was going on. If I wanted to get invested in an RTS, it would be Age of Empires 2. So we'll go ahead and look over the lay of the land here. This does have a big graphical upgrade, and I'd say it looks pretty good. I've been rolling, obviously images in the background of me just playing the game, and as you can see, it looks really nice, and you can zoom in and out, and there's a lot of nice features like that. They also say that the game has been extensively rebalanced, and I'm a poor reviewer there because I don't know how the balance initially was, except there was a deep memory moment that was unlocked by this game that I really appreciate. I got really into Age of Empires 2, and I would often proselytize about it to the other kids at school. But in about 5th or 6th grade, so I was 11 or 12, a friend of mine was like, you really ought to play the original Age of Empires because all you need to do is build ballista, and if you mass ballista, you'll win every mission. And he also told me about the cheats you could do, so you get a little car to drive around the map and shoot missiles and stuff out of it. And I had completely forgotten this pointless interaction in my life until I played the first mission where they gave you a bunch of ballista, and I was like, holy crap, he was right! And for some reason, that memory had been hiding in there, taking up space that could have had math formulas or some other thing in it that I probably would find much more useful. So that was the one. I would say I played through the tutorial campaign as Egypt. It was very helpful. It got the lay of the land because this game has some interesting design choices. So a thing that people get when you choose to play 90s games is the way that games, and particularly the GUI is set up, and are unusual in today's control scheme is set up. of examples. Like in RPGs. Now, in the wake of Skyrim and the Infinity Engine games for RPGs, basically the way a player is going to play an RPG game is basically set out. The buttons are similar, so to speak, and the way you're going to tell the player information on the screen is very similar. But when you go back into the 90s, or especially the early 90s, there's a lot of confusing stuff going on. The same goes for FPS games that were meant to be controlled by the arrow keys versus WAS and D. You'll see design choices like that, or the design changeover that happened with Halo, where you went in shooters to regenerating health from having numerical health and health pickups and armor and so on. Even though that's kind of making a return, there are a lot of those strange design choices here where I'm not an RTS expert by any means, but in old, like Warcraft 2 and a lot of older RTS games, there's a lot of very similar units. There's a big unit crossover, similarity in unit crossover, and maybe a little flavor variation. Warcraft 2 is probably the most indicative of that. And even Age of Empires 2 has some, similarities here and there between all of the different nations that you can play. But this one has a lot of similarity and crossover as far as I can tell. But that gap ends up being narrowed because in Age of Empires 2 and its sort of ilk, you could have a lot more units on the screen at one time. And so you've got this broad array of units you could build. But so you can build so few, you're actually better off to just monoculture essentially in a few areas, and then you're set, because the amount of brain power you have to use to control your 2 camels that you can build in order to take advantage of their unique stats is just too great. Especially for someone who's trying to play casually and isn't gonna really skill up to be able to micromanage everything that well. The other thing on systems that's just strange is where you go to get your upgrades for different units and tech tree type of stuff is pretty unintuitive. Your units' armor and weapons are upgraded at the storage areas where your villagers take all of the wood and stone and stuff that they collect, which is kind of weird. You would think that those sorts of upgrades in like Age of Empires 2, they have their own building that does them, and in most RTS games after that included unit upgrades, they would always get their own sort of facility for that, instead of being tied to where you have your workers collect stuff. As you can see in the gameplay going on right now, I saw that I was enabled to build ballista, and as my then 11-year-old friend had counseled me, I'm just going to build a bunch of ballista, and you're going to see in the background just how awesome they are, because they basically single-handedly trivialize this mission and the sort of scenario that was constructed for the campaign to make this a harder mission. Because this particular campaign mission, you're on a timer. You have to get rid of that wonder, the big statue in the middle of the map, and also then expand and do a bunch of other stuff. And so you've got to destroy that quickly without losing your whole army and massively weakening yourself. And the easiest way to do it is longer range ballista. And then also the ballista just kind of face roll anybody that tries to attack you, as long as you can protect them. And you'll see that to great display here. The other thing that's kind of weird in the system is just the pathfinding is really tough and punishing in some cases. The other thing that I think that you should probably be aware of, other than the points that I've already mentioned about, like, the buildings are unintuitive and weird, the game looks very broad, but it does not favor the use of that broadness, and the pathfinding being a little rough, is that the campaign is, let's see, older games tended to either have really long and involved missions or kind of short and one-off missions, and this is kind of a mix of both, and there's a lot of different campaigns to pick from for the different segments that you can use. I did encounter a couple of bugs throughout where, depending on what difficulty level you were playing on, the AIs would not work correctly or as intended. And also they updated some of the scenarios from the original. So if you're having struggles with some of the missions and you look up old game facts from, say, 2000 or 1998, they're not going to describe what you're looking at in this because the maps have been updated. And from the looks of things, most of the updates were meant to be utilized by players playing at the highest difficulty. Understandable, since the game had been out a while. But if you're playing at a lower difficulty, you can expect things to be a little strange on in the missions or in the areas where the makers of the definitive edition chose to deviate from the original. And that's basically all I'll say. One mission in particular that really got to me, Greek campaign, where you've got to go and convert other units of other villagers in order to build yourself up before an enemy attacks you. And on the very highest difficulty, it works as the original, where your monk can walk over and just convert everybody and they don't mind. But if you play it on a lower difficulty, the AI is set correctly. He gets attacked by all of the other villagers around, and that's that. You can't complete the mission. So that was one of the very first bugs that I really encountered in the campaign that made playing on not very hardest actually substantially more difficult than very hardest. So as you can see, I'm like trying to run away because they've aggroed me and with every villager that they've got. And the intended design of this level, at least in the original game, is that they'll just let you kind of convert them. So I've got to try and manage to use this one villager and figure out where best to place him while looking around sort of the lay of the land here. I find those bushes, so I figure whatever. And then I got to try and get myself back over here with this monk. And then I see those other bushes, so it probably would have been better to put my base somewhere else. But, and there's also all those meat animals are actually really important in Age of Empires 1. I guess that fits, right? You're in the Stone Age or whatever. But we're going to try to convert this guy down here, and he's going to run away from us. And the way you have to do it on not very hardest is keep your absolute distance and make sure that you're seeing everything, because you're going to get ganged up on. There we go. I got another one. Hoo-hoo. Make the great escape. Also, your priests, if you've never played Age of Empires before, the way this works is the priests have a faith counter. You can see it going up there. It's the third little thing by his portrait. And if he's not at 100%, he can't convert a unit. So you have to be pretty darn careful with everything. Especially when you're just going to get ganged up on and murdered. The other thing that's kind of unique about this particular scenario that actually made it really fun is the AI has another base over on the left side of the map that's a different faction, and it will attack you kind of at a set time on an easier difficulty, i.e. not the very hardest. That attack is weaker, and it's basically all that makes it possible to succeed here, because if you had to simultaneously be this careful while managing to fend off a strong attack, you would be hosed. So here we go. I'm trying to convert, and now I'm going to get ganged up on, and the monks run very slowly. And also another fun fact is that the conversion time is random. So sometimes they'll convert a unit very quickly, and sometimes they'll convert it very slowly. And our priest is going to die here. So this will then wind up being a scrubbed game, because I can't get my base built up strong enough with the 3 workers I've got by the time red comes and kills me, because green has already done it and I throw in the towel. The other thing that's pretty interesting about this game in general is because of that lower population setting, almost half your population, if not more, will be villagers. And so if you attack the AI or someone very early, you can see this is going to wind up being another scrub. If you attack very early, they're basically so handicapped the rest of the game that there's no way for them to function. So then I'll talk about the mission that actually just made me decide I had seen what I wanted to see out of this game and kind of had all the entertainment that I really needed. I think I'll definitely revisit it and try to play other scenarios, especially just because they give you interesting history along the way. That was what really attracted me to Age of Empires 2 to begin with, because I didn't really learn much about medieval history as a kid, and there's tons of it locked into that game. And the same goes for ancient history in this game. So there's lots of neat little stuff worked into the scenarios. But here is the mission that did it. So this is like, you're supposed to walk along this linear path and fight or run through enemy units as you go. And you collect new units also. And in the original Age of Empires 1, as far as I can tell, that was the whole scenario. In this one, you're meant to kind of build a base and do some other stuff too, so they made it a little more challenging. But this linear path is narrow, and so this clip definitely demonstrates how hard it is to just try to get units positioned. So you can see I'm like struggling to get my priests moved up to the front, while at the same time my elephants need to be up there, and they're really big. And I've also got catapults that I got to try to fight also to get them in position. And everybody's just like not helping. And I'm trying to get everything moved up correctly. And now I'm going to try to convert this unit with my monk while having another monk heal him. And then not kill them with the stupid catapult. But at the same time, the monk that I set to heal my monk that was converting him didn't actually do anything. And now we're trying to convert the unit, but it got hit by a ball from the catapult and basically killed him. And then right as soon as he gets converted, the tower shoots him and kills him. So now I've got to get my stupid catapults up here and shoot them. But the catapults are unupgraded, so they'll take hits from the tower. So the monks have to be right there, because they'll occasionally decide to just wander off from this stationary position. So I've set them to hold position, and hopefully they won't let my catapults die. Then we'll take out the tower, which is our obstacle in this particular portion of the map. So as you can see, it's kind of time consuming, but we finally get it done. And then we'll skip ahead a little bit, and we encounter the same scenario again, where I am able to convert some units. We convert a few more units, all while taking damage, and then the ball lands there and almost kills all my own units, and then no one is doing anything, and that guy just runs up and kills my priest because he took too long to do the conversion. And it's just like, how frustrating. How frustrating. And there's an even later moment in that particular mission where you have to move into this open a wall, and there's a bunch of units behind it, so you have to try to convert those while simultaneously not losing your priests. And that's pretty difficult. And then you have to squeeze through this tiny little thing while you're being attacked. And the priests almost always let the catapults get ambushed and die, or the priests get ambushed and die. And the alternative is you've got to build up a base and build some more siege units, or get some siege upgrades so that they can shoot from a further distance than the tower, and that's just going to take forever. And I just wasn't keen to do it after several attempts and being constantly foiled by the narrow path that's available in this mission. So that said, this game often goes on sale, and if you can get it in that like $5 and under range, or you really like ancient history, I think it's well worth it. I had a lot of fun. I got 20 hours out of it before I was just like, okay, I'm ready to move on with my life from here. It was really cool to just play with a ballista and rock throwers in regular against the AI kind of playthroughs. That's fun too. The only thing that I'll say about playing against the AI is it's a little less fun than it could be if you play aggressively early. Because if you attack the AI very early, it basically it crumbles because they can't ever catch up to you with the villager deficit that they have. And I'm pretty sure that's basically par for the course. So I didn't have a bad time, but there were a lot of pain points, and the game certainly could have been done a little bit better on the dress up side of it for a definitive edition. You can tell that they definitely play tested on very hard or the highest difficulty, and maybe not so much the other difficulties, since the AI tends to break on more than one campaign mission. That said, we're going to roll the dice here and see what comes out next. Versus my Steam account, I roll a 71 from the looks of things, and that is going to lead me to playing Osmos. I looked through my Steam account to see when I'd purchased this game, and I don't see that I ever did. So it must have been a gift from somebody at some point. So thanks. I'm finally getting to it. So I'll see you next time in me versus my Steam account.